Welcome everyone as you pop on. I'll wait till everybody is on and just state my apologies. We had an executive session that did run a bit long. It was addressing both some legal matters as well as some personnel matters. So I do apologize for that in terms of our workshop space. Having said that, it is the March 1st workshop. I would welcome I bring a call to order and ask for a roll call on this, please. That requires Alex on roll call if he is with us.
Yeah, we're going to start recording here, just so people know, and we're also going live on Facebook, and it's just preparing for me, so it was just buffering. Apologize for that.
Not a problem. Understood.
So we did have an executive session, and we're calling the meeting to order. In attendance, Matt Castiglia.
Here.
Adam McDowell.
Here.
Norma Greco.
Here.
Valerie Renthaler.
Here.
Kevin Collins.
Here.
Vice President Diane Law.
Diane, we need you to go off mute and say here.
Here.
President Jay Dorn, thank you, and Mayor Paul Gamrat.
Mayor Gamrat, you also will need to unmute in order to be heard.
Thing. There it goes.
There you go.
You gotta beat it. I'm present. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. The magic that is technology today. Okay, well, this is our workshop space. As we begin our workshop space, we'll start with listening to folks before we kind of go through our agenda items. As such, in the workshop space, similar to the other meeting, I would ask that you raise your hand if you are able. So if you click on the participants, you'll see there's a button to raise hand. You click on raise hand. Once you do that, I will call you in order. After I've gone through raise hands, if you were not unable to do that, I will look for people physically raising their hand on video. And then after that, if I still don't see any other folks, then I will move on to see if anybody who's on a call would have anything to say. So when you are called, please state your name, your address, and you have up to 3 minutes to speak. So we will begin at the beginning. Mr. Bilby.
All right, I'm on mic here. Okay, so let's get at this one. All right, bring up my comments here. Okay, guys, Murray Bilby, 2424 Churchill Road. This evening, I want to address the topography of the former Westinghouse R&D property. There's our few comments on the new article that I published in the churchillfuture.com. More elaboration, more details. 10 points. 1, to attain the equivalent flat space so that the 630,000 square foot distribution center with the parking and roads is something usually found designated industrial areas. It requires the equivalent to a mountaintop being removed for coal in West Virginia. Second point, Westinghouse fully understood its responsibilities to the Churchill community in designing their facility. They understood that the C1 was given to them for a campus environment. 3, the borough was specific in the 304 zoning code, page 35, that manufacturing and distribution centers were neither permitted nor conditional use businesses for the site. Disrupting the topography of the whole area, point 4, will create loose materials that inevitably will find its way into the streams and the storm water pipes. 5, soil stabilization is critical because differential settlement causes cracks in structure foundations. It's not obvious for several years, and the developer, he's long gone. 6, just because the laws can be twisted to allow for an activity does not mean it is the right thing to do. 7, anyone who has never gone to an industrial park, spent time observing, at least a half an hour, must do so if you are to truly realize the scale of modern distribution facilities. Only then can you begin to appreciate the magnitude of a single level 639 square foot building. And only then can you also appreciate 5 of them stacked one on top of the other that's taller than the office buildings at Penn Center. Number 9, Westinghouse designed each building and road around the lay of the land with diverse landscaping as part of its original design. And yet they designed how to use every single square foot of developable land without destroying that topography. 10, therefore, the borough should limit any development to the actual areas that Westinghouse developed. There's a significant amount of area. It will generate important income for the borough and the school district without the required traffic bottlenecks that are inevitable for a distribution center generating over 1,000 semi-truck trips a day. Thanks, guys.
I'm muted that time. What does that tell you? You're welcome. Thank you for your comment. I greatly appreciate it. We will move on now to Danielle.
Hi, Danielle Weaver, 880 Grand Boulevard. The Hogansburg Stamp Club's holding its first meeting in April, but we're going to be down at the Westinghouse Lodge. Is there any plans on opening up the Eagle Room? Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Just a quick, I don't think there's been much discussion on it at this point. So it is something that I can bring back up with council as we look at kind of the health and safety of our residents.
Yeah, we're a small club. I think the most we ever get at a meeting is around 16.
Yeah, I recognize that, and there's a specific space to the Yeagle Room with regard to the Stamp Club versus other activities. So I will speak to the borough manager and see where we're at. So I appreciate your comment. Thank you. Susan.
Hi. Hi, so I understand that this is a planning meeting where you decide what you might want to put on the agenda. Is that correct?
So this is our workshop meeting.
Yeah.
So as a result, the agenda for the workshop is everything that we're kind of need to discuss or working on. It's not necessarily germane simply to what goes on to the business meeting.
Okay.
Agenda.
So I want to bring up a more general question about the Westinghouse research property. So we know that development, some of them can bring harm, and that people are seeing that as trading it off with the money that would be coming in taxes. But it can also be an asset, and there's some things that have happened recently that I'm wondering if there's a way that we can, make use of this. And so as I understand it right now, Hillwood actually doesn't have a plan that they're waiting for a decision on right now. They're still working on it, correct? But at any rate, there's some possibility, I'm not saying it's large, but there's some possibility that they won't be able to follow through with their original plans, or they'll lose interest or something like that. We know that's happened before. So what I'm wondering is whether there's something the borough can be doing now with either volunteers or a subcommittee in terms of looking at sort of a plan B, if that one doesn't work out, that would actually be an asset to the borough. Now, when I say asset to the borough, I'm talking about something specific. I don't mean it in this very vague way. For instance, it could provide more resiliency for power outages. So just speaking of what's happened in the last year, and this wasn't even true a year ago, certainly not 5 years ago, but there's a lot of money available for communities to make themselves more resilient to power outages. And the other thing that's happened is that there's been regulatory changes and technical changes that make it very feasible to have something like a microgrid. And so we have this huge property. It would be, I don't know how easy it would be, but this could be something that would, a developer could work with us to make it so it would increase our resiliency as well as produce power. Now you might say, well, what about the money? Well, some of these things are no financial outlay. Somebody will just put it there and run it. But the thing would be is how would the borough be involved? What would be appropriate for us to do, I guess is what I'm asking, because I realize that the politics of, you know, getting along with NAI are involved, and I don't know what those all are, but I would like to suggest that we think about that. Yeah.
Duly noted, and I appreciate your comment. I would point out that I think thinking about all options are the responsibility of all of your representatives. So I think that's very true, and it's certainly not something that is new in our space. Is that space has been an ongoing vacant space for a very long time, with quite a history, you know, including litigation over watching its dilapidation between Viacom and CBS. So all of that has been true, and you know, we continue to work for best options. So I appreciate your comment. Is there any other comments today from folks up? Ken Belkey, I see a hand go up. So the hand is yours. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Ken Belkey, 2007 Hampstead Drive. I must not have paid some bill because I can't get my raised hand on my Zoom tonight. Hey, my whole report's not about me as a resident, it's our church, our tree committee, and I have some good and not so good. The good is that our work with the Woodland Hills School District, where there will be tree planting next month, Tree Pittsburgh now, it's going to be in Wilkins at the Wilkins Elementary, right next to Edgewood Country Club. But they're going to be seeking students from the high school. I'm going to be recommending some students from our community here that they would actually help with the planning with the younger children at the school. Tree Pittsburgh has done this in COVID situations, and I'm really impressed with the coordination they've done. And also there's several people looking for other funds to buy the landscaping trees that we want to do at the other two primary schools and also for the high school. My not so good is in the last week, we've lost 4 major, large, mature trees. One on Holland, 2 at Edgewood Country Club, right near, right below Churchill Road, right across from Wilkins School. And then there was one cut down this morning at Thornberry that was reported to me. And I understand, I sent a note in as well as I understand the mayor did too. My understanding that one might be in the right of way. And if you gave a permit, well, fine. If you didn't, well, then we got a serious matter here because that was a pretty big tree. I actually find the whole situation disheartening because I'm putting all this time in working with the kids to plant trees throughout the whole Woodland Hills School District. And I have fellow residents taking trees out way faster than I can ever put them in. Almost like, why am I doing this? And I look back over the last 3 years, I kept track and inventory. We've had streets where there have been significant loss. I'll just call them out. Parts of Churchill Road, Garrick, Henley, Holland, Nottingham, Thornberry, and of course the Country Club has significant loss over a much longer period of years. Then I look at streets where none have been removed. My part of Hampstead is still the original. Parts of Blackridge are still. Huntington Drive right off of Route 22 is still gorgeous within there as well. And what I'm noticing, the trend is that it seems that once one person took a tree out, then it was like, oh, the person across the street or right next said, oh, I'm going to do mine too, because that's what's happened. One took out, then the next one took out, and the next one took out. So we're slowly, it's like we're dying by 1,000 cuts. We're losing almost 1% of canopy a year. So I was so frustrated this morning, I could not bring myself to go over to the Thornberry. I know which tree was taken out. It's a gorgeous tree. So I ended up reaching out to Penn State Extension through my contacts through webinars I've done for folks in my position chairing the tree committee. And I told them the situation, what we're doing with our residents, plus also our development effort. And Vincent Catron from Penn State was very helpful. He gave us a ordinance from up in the Poconos where they're implementing a tree canopy percentage that the municipality does not want to go below. He's trying to get other ordinances from other municipalities that are trying to protect and preserve their canopies as well. And he gave us the names of an expert here in Pittsburgh and another professor at Penn State who think they can even bring more help. I'm gonna be really honest with you. To see all this tree loss occur year after year while I'm trying to do the effort, it's like, why am I doing this?
I understand. Unfortunately, the time, so I can give kind of more time to speak with you directly. I know that it is particularly frustrating for you all, but it's also kind of, the balance that we have in terms of our residents as well. And we've talked about that on both ends of it. I'm going to move forward to Valerie. So, Walters, you're listed right now as Valerie Waters, just so you know. You guys can go over. There you go. That's okay. It's all good.
All right.
How can I help?
Good evening, all. Valerie Waters, 2425 Marbury Road. My husband and I, Glenn, have lived here for 30 years. I think the Hillcrest project will be detrimental to the community. I'm not looking forward to all the traffic that they're proposing. I think that the plan is missing a few key components for it, such as a community benefit agreement, where it is used for small businesses that surround the area, whether it's tier 1, 2, and 3. And that should be for the next 20 to 30 years. The workforce plan just says there's 1,000 jobs. There was recently a public hearing in Oakland, and the residents complained about, well, those are not jobs for the neighborhood. So we need to look at that a little bit more and break that down, including residents that want to work there and the upward mobility of the workforce. There should be a semi-annual job fair with the high school, so the high school students can have a job there. There should be an annual donation. I don't think the $1.3 million is adequate for Churchill in the long run. If you look at it for the next 30 years, that's about $100,000 a year. The transportation plan that was in the last proposal I looked at did not address 1,000 to 1,500 new vehicles that is going to have an impact on Churchill. I looked at these, there's no safety implementation plan, especially for students and residents. I walk around all Greensburg Pike. I see the young kids working there, walking there to and from school and other activities. I don't see anything in their plan to protect our youth. And I want to see something like that. There needs to be another traffic study to include public transportation during all times of the day. As I stated in the beginning, I think the Hillcrest project would be detrimental to the community. And I know, because I used to work for 34 years in community development, there are state programs available that we can apply for jointly with Hillcrest to clean up the site and make it more amenable for developers wanting to come to Churchill. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. And certainly some that have been taken under consideration previously, so, and new ones as well. So I do appreciate it. Is there any other comments to be made today? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Glenn Waters, 2425 Marbury Road. Just heard from my wife, Valerie. Lived in here, resident of Churchill for almost 30 years. Back in August, it'll be 30 years. And I moved here and because it was a wonderful residential area. It's kind of like a dream move. I worked in pharmaceuticals for over 30 years, and this was my dream area to live. And now we're getting older. I'm 74 years old, semi-retired. I work the election polls every election. Many of you may have seen me. And I think the Hilltop, that adventure, they're not a genuine good partner. For all the reasons that have been spoken, but they have a facility in Finley Township. And that facility was erected in 2019 for the same company, Amazon. They sold that facility. in less than a year, that facility has been sold. They're away from there. It was sold to a hedge fund, and the tax receipts, this is according to Business Time, Pittsburgh Business Time, went for about 100 million. They purchased it, developed it for 30 and sold it for 100 million. I think that's who we're looking at. Once these large corporations move into your area, as they said, there'll be no parking on Greensburg Pike when they're done. That's only the first step. They're behemoths. They're from Texas, mainly. They're the Perot's from Texas, and that's who owns this hilltop. And I don't think they'll be good partners. They will not have the best interest of our wonderful community at heart. They're just business. Those trucks will be running 24/7, 365. And if you don't think they will, these places don't close down. I learned more about these when I was in another career at Aflac, and I went over to Ohio to do an enrollment, and there was a Sears facility, very similar. And these trucks run in and out, day and night. They don't stop. And that's not Churchill, as I'd like to see it. That remediation of that area over there we talked about, I'd like to see where council or the engineer has applied for brownfield and been turned down. Those funds are available. This is a quick solution, and it would be not to the benefit of the community. Thank you.
I appreciate your comment. I appreciate you working at the polls. You know, my daughter misses seeing you in the current time. So, yeah. But soon enough, we will make our way back. But your comment is well heard and understood. Is there any other comments to be made from folks that I can see? Fortunately, we don't have a giant crowd today, which makes it a little easier. Anyone on the phone that wanted to comment, you can unmute, and I'll see you unmute, and I can call that number out if you'd like to speak. I see Guy just threw his hand up there. So Guy, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, actually it's Joanne. I'm using Guy's phone.
Not a problem.
Joanne Skanga, 30 Churchill Road. I think all the comments that have been made in opposition to this project have been very thoughtful, and you can tell that people have a lot of emotion and consideration in terms of this project. I think that a lot of the issues that that are surrounding this whole project is a result of not getting any communication from our council. And I think that we need, or, whoever, whether it's Alex or, public relations, but I think the borough residents need to get more information. People unfortunately, may not travel to the borough building to extract all the information that you've put out. I think it would be very beneficial if we've all would be given something that we could further understand what the ramifications of this projects are, whether it's negative or positive, and that people should weigh in. And I think if there's anything that's been kind of, gleaned from tonight, is that there is a lot of opposition, and there may also be some people that are pro, but I think that the people need to be heard, and you guys need to hear us and to see where we can go from there, as opposed to rubber stamping this project.
So I appreciate the comment. Certainly making sure there's communication is of value to us. I think that's probably why there's been multiple public hearings, along with, quite frankly, it's been brought up at every council meeting that we've had over the last year or 2 years. It is a really important thing. So I think everyone should have strong feelings about it, no matter what decision is made. It goes without question that, they say, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. There is no space in which this will not impact the future of Churchill. Whether we ended up with this project going forward, whether we ended up with no project and it sat vacant for another 20 years, irrespective, there will always be an impact to it. I think it's the role of your council, who quite frankly put in far more time than I think I would ever have it even expected, to try and address every issue that we can in this space. The one thing that I would say, I think that the COVID space has actually offered a far greater opportunity to be engaged with councils, not just our council. This goes across the state. You know, we have over 130 boroughs in local municipalities just in this county alone. And what we're seeing is that when we started holding hearings and having conversations about the development, and when the developer came in and made presentations on multiple occasions, that we had the largest number of folks we've ever seen, quite frankly, at meetings. I think the only thing that probably was at the same level is when we were dealing with the fracking issue, when we worked on that. So I agree with you to try and increase, always to try and increase the communication. I think there's no space in which we don't work or attempt to work harder to make sure that communication is strong. I would point out that this space is always here and will remain here even post-COVID. So even after we find a way to get back together, we're going to keep a way for people to connect online and have direct access to council. So, and the last thing I would say is I think that you know, the weighing of the pro and con in this space of our citizenry, I expect that we have people that are very, very for this and very, very against this, and people who are right in the middle. Our job, I think, as council is to try and make the decision that's best for the community as a whole, and best for the future of Churchland. I know every council person takes that very seriously. Is there anyone else on the phone who wanted to make a comment that has not had an opportunity? Okay, well, then we're going to move forward into the discussion items on the agenda. First of all, I assume everyone has had and received the minutes from last month. So if you've had a chance, is there anything that anybody needs to had any concerns, issues so far with the minutes at this point? I'm assuming we're pretty decent. When we have it up on the share screen, I don't have my normal Brady Bunch of you guys, so it changes my my view. Okay, so then I'm going to move to the mayor's report. The mayor's report, of course, I defer to the mayor first to provide his report, at which time we can move forward after.
You know, Mr. President, the mayor's report is generally given at the regular monthly council meeting on the second Monday. I have not received.
See what happens when Alex does this to me? I'm just totally off on my game.
I knew you knew that.
My game is, I'm testing you, man. I'm testing you.
We are in the midst of preparing that report, and it will be distributed to all council members in preparation for next week.
For those who don't know, I am so off on my game right now that I'm treating this like next week's meeting. So normally the mayor reads his full report. So I'll just acknowledge just how off I am today and move my way forward. Any other issues in terms of reports that we want to go through and discuss? Anything in terms of committees that we want to run through on discussion? We've got a few things I think that we do want to. I just want to kind of kick through the space. You know, just so that we're clear on what's up. Do we have anything upcoming, Alex, that needs to be brought to council's attention in terms of on your end?
No, as you know, this being the first day of the month, it makes it kind of challenging for everybody to get their monthly reports done. So I'm hoping to get a new binder to the council by Thursday that would include the mayor's report as well and the police chief's report. So the items number 3 and 4 dealt with the committee reports and office reports. Those should be in your binder. The first item really for discussion is kind of where we're at on the hiring of police officers.
Yeah, so I haven't gotten to that space yet, just seeing if there's anything that we needed to point out. I appreciate that. It is the wonderful challenge of the on the first space. So you can't really make the reports when it pops right up on you. Having said that, we will move into number 5, which is, with effectively talking about the hiring of 2 officers to fill the openings. So in this space, really the conversation that we're talking about is the number. We've identified, I think, some strong candidates. I think we've talked about kind of what process looks like in the terms of hiring police officers. So, and the one thing I want to just make sure we're on the same page in terms of the 2 officers that we would look to, that's what we're going to look to hire. I'll open it up for discussion and then kind of move forward from there.
Okay, Mr. President. Yeah, my only comment is I understand that we're looking at hiring 2 officers this year. I think it would be best to hire 1 at a time and a second one later on the year, just for logistic purposes. I think that's wise.
So, well, I'll let other people comment first before I respond. Other comments?
Okay, I just want to, the hiring of those officers, we've had some recent retirements. And so we're trying to, fill those spots from the retirements. And I understand, Mr. Collins, where you're coming at, but we're trying to get that, back up to where we were prior to those retirements. And, it's a good opportunity for us right now to, from what I understand, to get a little diversity as well on our force while we can.
So I would just point out that in the space of hiring, right now we are operating what seems to be clearly below what is optimal for us. We've had a couple of retirees, and it's anytime anyone has any kind of injury, which we know keeps happening, we end up short. What many people may not know in our space, we don't have a very large department in the sense that we have more shifts with 1 officer than we do any other right now. And so as a result, when we've had a couple of retirements, it really puts us at a strain in terms of manpower, looking kind of forward. So we had a couple of retirements. The question really is about filling those 2 positions, but not expanding our force. So I tend to agree personally with the mayor. The logistics of the way this runs is that the council, of course, makes the financial decision. So we make the hiring decision in that space because of the finances, but the mayor has direct oversight over the police department.
And just to add to, if I may, we did have some slight injuries to 2 of our officers just recently. Fortunately, they were not off of work. They were able to come back the next day and fulfill their duties. But, in the midst of the COVID, if something happens with somebody getting sick, I work with the chief as far as the scheduling goes to push our officers to have to work, more time than would be necessary on any shifts. And that's why I worry about with our police officers.
Really noted. Any other comment on this issue? So I think we're at a decent space. I appreciate the comment, Kevin. I understand the concern, but I think we are looking at it replacing 2 that retired, as the mayor had said. If there's no other comment on that, we'll move to number 6, which is the lead program. Alex, if you have the capacity, or the mayor, if you want to give a quick briefing on it, would be really helpful.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
I was saying on the lead program, it looks like the pre-arrest law enforcement assistant diversion program.
You know what? I don't have that in front of me right now to speak intelligently on it as well. Okay. So I'll defer for that another time.
I do have the, the agenda up where hopefully individuals can see. They might not be able to because they're looking off of a phone, but starting in Seattle, out on the West Coast, a program like this began. The Connect communities, which are the communities including Pittsburgh and around Pittsburgh, the Congress of Neighboring Communities, has been working with the Turtle Creek Valley Council of Governments and various municipalities to look at this community-based diversion approach, with the goals of improving public safety and, quite frankly, lessening unnecessary incarcerations and clogging up the judicial system where possible. So as you can see in the second paragraph, I'll just move up a little bit here so people can see that. There's a lot online about this kind of program. The solicitor and I were discussing earlier whether or not this would even be necessary given the borough structure in Pennsylvania and the mayor, quite frankly, working with the police chief to direct certain policy elements. But we wanted the council to see this. Police Chief Ackerley brought it to our attention as an opportunity that he wanted us to explore, that a couple of our neighboring communities were looking at as well. And again, it's it's one of the practices that are gaining speed around the country related to community-based policing.
So I would follow that up by saying Churchill has taken a position going back after a couple of quite frankly horrific incidents where we engage with the school district to look at how we can use diversion in the school district. Myself helped with rewriting, quite frankly, the policies of interaction between the students and staff and administration, to decriminalize students in our district. One of the things that we had seen going on, and Diane and I have used this as the example 1,000 times, was that there was a situation of a kid who was wearing his pajamas in the school. And so, they called the police for wearing his pajamas, right? Now you've got an interaction between the police department and a kid that could potentially escalate. And so that should never happen. So we have tasked our chief to look at ways in which there can be programs and training that will address these issues, not just in the school district, but throughout our community. I think it's an important space that we need to work at to make sure that our police officers set models and standards that can be followed across the region. So we're working diligently at trying to get these things done, which is why I think that the chief has brought this forward. This program in particular, we can talk about it. It's going to take some time and length, but I think this is one of the many opportunities to try and get in a space of looking at policing beyond the idea of looking at arresting, right? Looking at policing with the understanding of addressing both needs of our community, the servant space versus the enforcer space. And so hopefully this will start to get us in that space. But I know he's looking at a number of trainings, so we'll continue to see them. And if we can get folks involved in this, great. And if this one isn't the perfect fit for us, we understand that too. But I think that's the nature of why this is before you all, just so you all understand that as council.
And excuse me, Mr. Brett, and just to add to that too, this isn't something new that just came across. I recall going to some meetings probably 3 years ago where I met with a bunch of police chiefs over the high school, and this was all brought out back then. It's now being looked at again, and it's more going toward the implementation part of it.
I would say that that one of the best things that I saw in that space is our officers not talking but listening. I think too often in spaces, and this goes to this kind of program, officers think that they need to be the ones talking, and I really need them to be the ones listening. I don't know if there's anything else on this, or we can move down to number 7. Cool biz. All right, so I'm just going to introduce this, and I will turn this over to both I think the solicitor and you're in this, my friend. I see you, and Ms. Law, our vice president, on this. This is a question about the process if Forest Drive can be made into a one-way to prohibit traffic from Beulah West into Black Ridge. So process-wise, Mr. Robb, Vice President Law, the floor belongs to the two of you. I will step back and get some popcorn.
I will defer to Ms. Law or someone who has some more information about this particular potential one-way street. Maybe Mr. Flynn, maybe Ms. Law, maybe Mr. Gaziani.
Ms. Law, the floor is yours first if you want to unmute yourself.
I was grabbing for it and I didn't hit it. Okay, thank you. What would I do? The Forest Drive comes off Beulah Road where that really steep curve is. And there have been many, many accidents at that intersection. It's a very steep road that comes down from Beulah Road to Black Forest Road on Forest Drive. It's also, and any of you who've driven it, it's blind. When you're coming up Beulah Road and you turn right onto Forest Drive, you cannot see what is on the other side. We've had discussions, Ralph and I have had discussions about how on earth we can slow down the racetrack of traffic that comes through there every morning. There have been many, many circumstances where people in the community have been almost run off the road while they're walking or running. Lots of people doing that, strollers and so on. School buses come down that hill and slide through the stop sign pretty routinely. It's been a very unsafe place for quite a while. So what I'm suggesting is that we make Forest Drive one way toward Beulah Road from Black Forest Drive. It's just a block. And there's no one who lives in that community who can't very easily come in and out in another way. And if you make it outbound, then both lanes come up in one direction. Then also you have an alleviation of traffic because you've got people who can turn left on one lane and people who can turn right on one lane. That doesn't back up that traffic down over a block, which is what happens now. As I say, there have been many accidents there. So I'm looking forward to the studies that Gateway has suggested. And we will also take a look at the accident record and we'll go from there.
So fill me in on these suggestions, Dennis.
Sure. Because this is an intersection with a state road, it would require having to go to PennDOT for PennDOT to perform a final review of it. In order to perform the initial study or analysis, you get traffic counts, turning counts, and any other considerations in terms of measurements and sight distance for that roadway in order to determine whether or not a one-way or some other alteration is warranted in that area. That report would then be prepared. Would also need to work with the neighboring municipality, being that part of that neighborhood would be affected. And so that would all be prepared, provided to PennDOT, and PennDOT would need to approve any type of change at that intersection.
And so just for mine, and anyone else can feel free to chime in, but just for my clarity. One, what's the process timeline? Kevin, I'll ask this for you. Two, what's the costs involved effectively? Like, is this a major issue? Is this that's my Kevin question. I'm gonna ask it for you, Kevin. I got you. So what's the timeline in terms of the effectiveness? What's the cost involved, and what's the likelihood? And I know that that's just conjecture, so I don't expect you to be able to answer on behalf of that.
Right. So certain pieces of it, and I am relying on Kyle Brown and Mike Haberman from our office on our traffic team. But when we originally started discussing this, it was about a 3-month process to get the study to PennDOT and back from PennDOT. The initial work, I think, was under $5,000 was the consideration. for the evaluation piece of it. And then in terms of likelihood, that's still pretty far up in the air until we have some more information.
Ready. Now that that's on the table, other comments from folks? And so for your, just so I know, for your end of the reporting part, what would be a timeline for you all for Gateway?
Again, now that we have better weather, I think there'd be a better chance of getting the analysis performed. I think that it was about a month or under a month once we get the go ahead, but again, about 3 months total until we can get something approved.
One question, Dennis, would PennDOT be willing to pick up any of this?
That's a good question. Something that we can certainly, bring up to them, being that it is, an intersection with one of the roads. And if there have been a series, and PennDOT would be able to help with any accident reporting there as well.
They had to replace the guardrail there about 6 times in the last 2 years.
Has the school board been approached as far as bus traffic? What would it mean? I have no idea how many buses go down.
No, not yet. But remember, there are buses coming from at least 3 different public schools. And there are kids in that neighborhood probably go to 10 different private schools. So there's lots of buses coming in and out of that place. I haven't thought, Dennis, is that any part of what we would need to do from your perspective?
Well, there would be, just you'd want to make sure that you're coordinating with them in terms of bus routes and their typical. But again, not much more other than coordination.
What about emergency response?
Yes, again, the county would be involved there, so you'd have to make sure that you are coordinating with the county and verifying that you're not creating longer response times or any issues in regards to that.
Hey Dennis, this is Matt. I'm sorry, I had to log off video. What's the next shortest route, I guess, for somebody that lives up that way, that's going to be at the end of that road and has to go all the way around to get to where they live now?
It would be Old Gate.
Yeah.
Old Gate, Black Ridge, Collins, McNary. There's at least 4.
And then I guess one other comment I would have is, I know it was discussed during the Hillwood development that their traffic studies or the traffic numbers they were able to take for counts were done before the coronavirus became an issue. I guess my question would be, do we need to delay anything like this? Would counts be accurate right now if we took them, at this time, or would they need to be adjusted or taken, would we need to delay this?
Yeah, I've talked with our traffic team to see what they are doing kind of now, whether or not they are taking things and then providing a factor to it to alter it to, normal traffic state.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the table here? Okay, so can I get a consensus on moving forward, though? I think that's what I need for Dennis at this point.
I'm okay with continuing along with the study, my opinion.
I would like to motion that we refer this to Infrastructure Committee and have some further discussion. It kind of surprised me that I hadn't heard about this before.
Yeah, I don't think it requires a motion per se, but it certainly can be referred into committee. I think it's in an early stage either way. I think what I would suggest, quite frankly, is that Dennis work with the committee to move it forward to the stage that we're talking about right now. So the rest of us will kind of pull out. We need to kind of green light in terms of even, for him to move forward in any capacity, and that he'll work with the committee then in order to kind of, you know, whatever studies come forth, go back to the committee. That's a conversation that then happens between the committee and the engineer. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yep.
I see some nodding.
Yes.
So I'll make the executive decision that that the nodding was affirmative yes. And so what we're going to do is direct Kevin or Dennis to move forward with the understanding that he will work with the infrastructure committee on the issue. Outstanding.
Thank you.
That moves us in a discussion about I like the discussion of some existing ordinances. Now we have many, but we'll talk about some. Looks like the property maintenance space. So Alex, I'm going to pull you into this space for this conversation.
I'm going to hand it off to the mayor. He asked that this be placed on the agenda. As you can imagine, he gets a lot of feedback from citizens about particular issues, and we already heard one tonight about tree in the right-of-way issue. So Mayor, why don't you go ahead and give some context?
Yeah, thank you. Well, the number one thing with the snow that we had recently, you know, the past couple of years we've been kind of lucky not getting a lot, but recently we've had a lot of snow, and I received some emails, actually quite a few emails and phone calls about residents not clearing the walkways, especially up on Greensburg Pike area, where a lot of people do walk that pike and use the sidewalks. The residents whose sidewalks in front of the house aren't shoveling the snow, and it forces anyone walking out onto the street. And right now the kids aren't in session, so it's not too bad. But when the kids are walking to school, which they do, they're forced to either walk in the snow or out in the street to avoid the sidewalks. So that was one of the issues. Another one is the trash situation. I'm getting complaints about people putting the trash out too early, leaving trash cans out well after it's been picked up. And I know we have some ordinances and rules, so when they can go out and when they should be back in. Just general yard maintenance was a big one in the summertime. And they, like I said, with the tree ordinance, you see the trees being cut down. And I know it's hard to know what ordinances we have and how we can get that out there. But I think we have to somehow get back on that and get word out to the residents that we do have ordinances, even with where your garbage can's placed in your house. You know, they can't be visible from the street or the side. So, you know, we need to maybe revisit that situation.
And so what we have done in previous years, as we kind of get to this point, right? So we've passed the ordinances, people follow them for a while, they kind of forget. We tend to send out the reminder in the newsletter that provides people with the, you know, 2 or 3 of the key ordinances that we're having issues with. So, you know, just hey, you know, don't forget that your garbage cans need to be out of sight, you know, and can't be put out, you know, or left out too early, too late. You know, I don't know if it is snow shoveling time again or not. There's probably one good big one coming back at us. But it's that, you know, those kind of things where we come up with 2 or 3 of kind of the key ones. We put those in the newsletter, we put it on the website, and we notify folks. We can also, you know, push it out, you know, as we look at some of our direct to resident contact services. So we've got, you know, we're looking at the one, but right now we've got the SWIFT. So that's the other spaces we can probably push that out as a reminder. I think.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think those have been, those have had returns for us in the past that people have picked up a little bit and said, oh, got it, you know. But the other question that I have is, and it kind of brings my question to Alex in the world of what's code enforcement look like lately, you know. You know, do we see that we're going to have any issue coming in the spring, or do we think we'll be good with our enforcement levels? And I think that's the other question that's on the table.
So we have a reactive enforcement of code, and how that works is when you all or a resident gives to me specific instances of a thing they're concerned about, we look at it, and then we send letters, and the letters give people time to address the issue. For example, put the garbage cans behind the building, remove snow from their sidewalk. And we have been enforcing those. So as soon as things come to our attention, but we do not have the manpower to patrol the streets and just look for stuff for code violations. We don't go fishing for them. So the newsletter is key. What we're doing tonight is key. We're on Facebook. Hopefully people start to maybe become aware that yes, we do have codes and we will enforce them. And maybe they'll even contact us and say, here's an issue I have. Can you help me understand if it's a violation? But just today we sent out some notices to people, and that's usually how we get compliance, right? Somebody gets a letter and they decide I better get my garbage cans out of the way or do whatever it is we're asking them to do. Sometimes then we have to follow up with enforcement actions, and very rarely we end up having to go to the magistrate's office to enforce penalties on scofflaws and violators.
And just to add to that too, Alex, if I could, and I talked with Ralph about that today too. There's some legal issues, like you said, around it. You just can't, you got to give the person enough time to respond to it. You give them a warning, then you have to give them a second warning. So it's not just a cut and dry thing. There are steps that you have to take. And I know I have to look at it again, but in the welcome packets that we send out, Krista may know, I have to look at it again, that we do mention in there about the garbage cans. And I talked to a new resident the other day, and I happened to notice that her cans were out in the driveway when I was, visiting the house. And I just said to her, we do have an ordinance, and she was very thankful. I just didn't know. Once I pointed out to it, I rode by today, the cans were gone. So it's just a matter, they don't know and how we can keep telling people, especially the new residents, but everyone is getting the welcome packet. I'm a little bit behind since of the COVID, but I have been sneaking out a little bit here and there.
There's just two things I'd like to say. One is that I think particularly during this COVID period, we need to be sensitive to the fact that there may be people who, both in terms of the sidewalks and the trash cans, that could have an effect there. I know one of the things that concerns me is we have a lot of seniors, and with the snow and so on, they sometimes have family members who come and put out the trash or come the next day and take it down. And I think something we can say in our newsletters is be conscious of people on your street who might have difficulty doing this, and help them out. That's one thing. The other thing is that I think we can use the newsletter to maybe even, Alex, create something like a column, like know your ordinances. And then we can feature, the ordinances and then give the website for them to find out what they are. As Jay said, I think we can better use the tools that we have, and hopefully that will develop. Because I do think there are a lot of people who have no idea, what these rules are.
And to add to that, in a conversation today with Ralph again, today's the first of the month. So this is bulk pickup for us. So people that are saying like there's too much trash out there. Well, yes, there is, because today's the bulk pickup day. So there is more trash out there, and people aren't, you can't wait till the night before to put that all out of here, because if it's a lot of trash, they've been gathering it, maybe for the past week or so and sending it out to the curb. So it is out there. And like Ralph pointed out, you can't just jump out there and, slap the fine onto them. You have to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. But I do get some letters from one resident in particular. It's kind of been an ongoing issue with his neighbor about the trash and the cans and the dogs, dogs wasting his yard. It's just, and he says to me, what can the borough do about it? I mean, we can discuss it.
Yeah, we can discuss it, and if it's code violations, then it can be enforced. So there's also a space of what's going on between neighbors and whether or not there's an issue that needs to be handled. So all of that stands. If there's something specific that we need to know, Mr. Mayor, please let us know as well. And we certainly, and speaking of dogs, if you hear my 90-pound puppy barking in the background, yes, but we certainly will. Also, Alex, thanks for bringing scofflaw into the lexicon of council. Appreciate that. That was well played. but yeah, I think, you know, again, we can communicate it and hopefully get people to observe by understanding what their obligations are. I'm hoping that my daughter is not getting eaten right now.
And I'm sorry. And the reason we have those ordinances is for the betterment of the whole borough. You know, we're looking for that aesthetics. We want to keep.
We went through a lot of these. Just as a little bit of context, and I'm going to move us forward into the zoning hearing board because there's a 50-50 chance. Seriously, my 8-year-old is being eaten by a dog right now. But the reality of a lot of the ordinances that we put in after discussion with residents about kind of what the needs are to keep the standards of Churchill in a way that we don't see a decline. That's when, you know, when we looked at the space of addressing refuge and recycling and bringing all that on, one of the things we talked about was that we'll have that kind of uniform can space that makes just a better looking residence. Well, it doesn't make a better looking residence if you're leaving your garbage out all week long, right? And so we said, okay, let's make sure that people know that they have to bring their cans back and that they're not sitting out there. You know, so we had a program for a while of a code enforcer through the COG, through the Council of Governments, and that you know, having a more proactive approach is one of the other things that we need to discuss more again. You know, and that's a question again of resource cost and all that comes along with it. The COG program, unfortunately, did not stand up. You know, but I think really thinking about how we can effectively enforce code in a way that, to your point, Mr. Mayor, is not, you know, trying to be punitive on our residents, trying to be like, oh, we caught you, but more about making sure, hey, people, this is what we're trying to do. This is who we're trying to be. You know, let's make sure we got our garbage cans put away. And if you can't put your garbage can away because you're physically not able, for instance, you know, there's a law that makes sure that you don't have to under that circumstance. We'll try and give you accommodation or have somebody assist you. So, you know, we're not trying to make it a burden on people either, quite frankly. I'm going to move forward from this unless there was something else.
Well, just one more quick thing. Alex and I we did have a little conversation about at some point trying to get a volunteer group together just for that for the senior citizens in our borough, that if you needed your sidewalk shoveled, you know, we could call on someone and say, hey, can you go over there to you know, Collins Road and shovel so-and-so's driveway or walkway, or assist in some way. So we were talking about that.
Well, I am happy to participate in shoveling, moving garbage cans. That's a space that so if we want to get it together, let me know what that looks like.
Yeah, we can get a little group together and, you know, and as needed, call on someone and say, can you go take care of that?
So, all right, anything else on this issue? All right, let's move to ZHB, the zoning hearing board, and I will turn this space over, I think, at this point. Madam Vice President.
I think the first thing is, Alex, do you want to talk about the hearing, the zoning related thing that's going to be happening Wednesday with the you know, with the chickens?
We have a couple moving parts. The Planning Commission has a meeting on March 3rd, Wednesday at 7 p.m. to discuss the draft ordinance prepared by the council related to backyard chickens. We're also expecting a submission by Trek Development for a variance request to the zoning hearing board, which brings us to the part of the agenda tonight. The zoning hearing board, as you know, is down one member. One member left the zoning hearing board to join the Planning Commission. So we're short one in the 3-member body. Would like the council to make an appointment this evening for that, if possible. And then expecting the application soon for the variance, we'll be able to schedule the zoning hearing board, which we expect to be the last Monday of the month here in March at 7 p.m. So a lot of moving parts. And Gavin or the council, if you have any questions, let me know.
Alex, I do have, I'm sorry, Ms. Law, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do we know the vacancy that's being filled? Do we know the end date of that term so that we can include that in our motion?
Yeah, it's the 22nd, I believe, or 2022.
Okay, thank you.
The term expires April, it says April 30th, 2022, which seemed odd to me, but that's what it says. So
That does seem odd.
I don't know.
Why
But
don't we have the motion just be to fill the vacancy, and we can make sure we get that clarified.
okay.
Yeah, if there isn't confirmation, then let's leave it clear unless we get confirmation.
Yeah, okay. Well, let me say, first of all, that we advertised in the on the website for the borough for people who might be interested in serving in this position. And we had that up for quite a while, didn't we, Alex? And we got 2 people who sent letters of interest. One of those individuals has decided to try to make a contribution of her talents to the borough in a different way. So the other individual that we had is a very highly qualified person. And so I'm going to make a motion that the council appoint Matthew Curtis to the vacant position on the zoning hearing board.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? So again, just as in any motion that's on the floor regarding people who want to serve, I always take at least some time to tell them that we appreciate their willingness, and you know, then I same close that there's a sucker born every minute. So all right, is there any other discussion on this matter? Hearing none. We roll call on this, or we just do all in favor? Let's just do a all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. I'm not quite sure I caught the rest of you there. You were muted on your eyes. So I'll take a nod. Was that a yes from Norma?
Yes.
All right. Everybody else, I think I got. Any opposed? All right. All right. Congratulations. We have filled another seat of the zoning hearing board.
Good job, folks.
Yes.
Good job.
Good. The work never ends. All right, updates from folks. Anybody have anything they'd like to bring to the table today? Council members, we'll start with you all, then we'll wing our way back to Gavin and Dennis. Anyone, Bueller? Looks pretty quiet. Looks good. Going through the Hollywood Squares / Family Feud / All right, anything from you, Gavin?
No report, Mr. President.
Dennis, Felipe?
I just got a couple of things. There's been a lot going on here lately. Just Churchill or the Collins Road pump station. General permits from DP. We received initial comments. Responses to those are coming back out this week. It also looks like we should be getting the water quality management permit soon. They just provided initial correspondence regarding that. The easement exhibits and descriptions will be provided to the solicitor here this week for review and to prepare the easement agreements. And then the initial work orders have been prepared to go to the contractors for the upstream work from the smoke testing. We do have 3 contracts currently out for bid: CCTV, the road program, and Kingsdale Storm Sewer Project. So those should be opened prior to April's meeting and would be on the agenda for consideration in April. And then lastly, the Grand Boulevard Storm Project, which was bid last year. The contractor for that has been brought back in, and we're going to have a pre-construction meeting with him next week to get that started.
Thank you. Infrastructure remains the big outlay. Any comments on this, folks? I see Kevin, you're unmuted. I see Diane, you're unmuted.
No, I just think there's been a lot of committee work with both the infrastructure committee and the finance committee. We're trying to dovetail together as the projects are initiated or budgeted for, then finance is making sure that we can pay for it. So it's been a lot of coordination and a lot of cooperation.
Turns out we do have to pay for them, don't we? Diane?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something quickly that I had wanted to say this evening. I wanted to point out that the school district sends us routinely an update of their activities and so on, and we really appreciate that. It's sent out to all the municipalities. I just wanted to mention the fact that, in case people don't know, Churchill is in District 1 of the school district, and that is comprised of Wilkins, Churchill, Turtle Creek, and Chalfont. For the last 2 cycles, Churchill has not had anyone run for the school district. And there was recently a vacancy where a person was appointed who is from Wilkins. So I want to, send out the plea to people in our community that if you have problems with the school district, or you are concerned about the impact of the school district on our borough, it would be helpful for us to have someone from Churchill who would run for the school board. And I just wanted to mention that. It hadn't been discussed for quite a while, and it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I appreciate the comment. Any other comments either regarding Dennis or others? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
One more comment. And to Alex, I don't know. I know that they've been working on the newsletter to the borough, and I actually did see a copy, a preview of it. It's a very well-written letter. I was wondering when it will be sent out, if we can let residents know. We have about 20-some people on tonight, and they could tell 25, because I ask people, they say, oh, I don't read it. So, but there's a lot of good information in there. That's another way we can get to reach the residents. And now that we're back on board, making that a little bit more of a regular printing, although I know it's an expensive endeavor.
So March 5th, we expect it to be in mailboxes. Possibly that's Friday.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, our esteemed colleague, former Vice President, who we miss, Ray Jurwitz, used to talk all the time about providing the information and trying to get people to actually look at it, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had been sending out the newsletters, and we had the website, and Ray would always say, it's right on the website. And then we talk about, well, not everybody, has access to the internet or understands how to get to the website. He's like, well, we provide a mailer. Say, well, not everybody reads the mailer. He's like, well, I would add to that now. Well, he'd say we have the meeting, and I'd say not everyone can make it to the meeting, and then I would add now that we have the meeting online, so in the future, if you can't make it to the meeting and you don't look on the internet and you don't want to read the mailer, maybe you can check the meeting out, I'm always open, I think, in trying to look at the best ways to communicate. If there are other ways that residents have outside of the space of, quite frankly, the website, a newsletter, kind of a swift reach, kind of direct to consumer kind of space, these kind of Zoom spaces, we're here to that point to learn, because I don't know what they are. So I'm all ears, rather than mouth, as I normally am, I suppose. Okay. Is there anything else that folks have? All right. If there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the workshop.
So moved.
Can I pull a second so we can go?
Second.
All right. All right. I will take it as a game, set, match. Thank everybody for coming out. A few folks I need to touch base with, and have a good night.
Good night, all.
Good night, all. Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everybody.